Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning. Right now at 5, President Trump has been impeached for a second time, and this time 10 Republicans joined Democrats on that vote. We'll have the latest at what comes next now with only 6 days left of the president's term. Plus, Kevin McCarthy sits down with Tom Wallace to talk about yesterday's vote. He voted no, and what comes next as they prepare to welcome the Biden administration. Plus, a string of shootings breaks out across Bakersfield, leaving 2 people dead and 2 others wounded. We're going to have the latest on the investigations. This is Thursday, January 14th, 2021. And good morning. Good to have you with us on this Thursday. I'm Maddie Jansen, anchoring from home. Alex Fisher holding down the fort in studio. And just hard to believe that we're in the midst of January right now with the, sunny, warm, mild weather we've been seeing lately.
Yeah, I know that typically we're supposed to see quite a bit of rain during this time of year. And Kevin Charette joins us now with a look at our forecast. And unfortunately, Kev, we should be seeing at least an inch of rain. You talked about it yesterday, and we've got, 0 in the gauge right now?
Yeah, we shouldn't be at an inch just yet, but right over 3/10, so over a quarter of an inch for sure this time of year. And every day that goes by, we are adding to that deficit, and I see no rain in our near future, Alex. And today, temperatures are going to be quite mild in Kern County. Wait until you see temperatures around the other parts of the state. It's just going to be warm. You're going to think it's a spring or maybe even a nice summer day. The one thing we've been tracking as well is fog, and fog is not really a problem for you this morning if you're headed out on the roadways. As you can see here, downtown Bakersfield is in the clear. The 99 is looking good. And even at Mohawk and Rosedale, no fog to talk about there at this time. In terms of where the fog is, again, the hot spot up near Merced and Fresno. So if you are going to be traveling up that way, you will run into some of that fog. And then we have mostly clear skies out of the Kern County area at this time. And I'm looking at a sunny day ahead. 43 on the temperature right now with a light wind out of the south at 3. Visibility is good at 4 miles. And you can see here hour by hour, we're expecting the mid 60s this afternoon. And then for the mountains, starting out at 39 under a calm wind at this time, and hour by hour, lots of sunshine throughout the day, and you're also looking at some very mild temperatures into those mid 60s. I'll have much more on your forecast, and we'll take a look at those rain totals all coming your way in just a bit.
All right, Kev, thanks so much. This morning, we continue our coverage on yesterday's impeachment vote on Capitol Hill. The president being impeached for a second time is something our country has never seen before. Tracy Potts is on Capitol Hill, where there's a huge military presence as the city prepares for inauguration and the next phase of impeachment.
Alex, good morning. Good morning, everyone. As Washington locks down to prevent further violence, it's unclear this morning when we might see an impeachment trial to determine if the president is guilty of this charge.
President Trump is waking up this morning as the first and only president to ever be impeached twice.
Today, in a bipartisan way, the House demonstrated that no one is above the law, not even the President of the United States.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi made it official after 10 Republicans joined every Democrat condemning the president for inciting last week's riot at the Capitol.
I am not choosing a side, I'm choosing truth.
If inciting a deadly insurrection is not enough to get a president impeached, then what is?
Most Republicans argued this impeachment was not just about last week, but the end of a 4-year vendetta by Democrats.
It's always been about getting the president no matter what.
But one of the president's staunchest supporters who voted no blamed him for the attack.
The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters.
In a videotaped speech with no media present, the president never mentioned impeachment, but urged extremists headed to Washington to remain peaceful.
There must be no violence, no law breaking, and no vandalism of any kind. Everyone must follow our laws and obey the instructions of law enforcement.
Now, impeachment heads to the Senate, where Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he's undecided on the president's guilt, but there will be no trial before next week's inauguration.
In a statement, President-elect Biden says he's hoping the Senate can do double duty, hold an impeachment trial while dealing with other urgent business of the nation. And that business would include confirming his cabinet. I'm Tracy Potts, 17 News.
And as you just heard, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy of Bakersfield was stuck in the middle of the president's impeachment. 17's Dayton Wallace had a one-on-one with the congressman who addressed his feelings about the vote, plus also conversations he had with the president.
Did the president commit an impeachable offense, yes or no?
I don't believe he did.
Congressman Kevin McCarthy speaking to 17 News today about the historic second impeachment of President Donald Trump.
Madam Speaker,
we interviewed McCarthy just after he delivered this speech on the House floor.
The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters.
But during our interview, McCarthy softened his words.
You said, quote, President Trump bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress. Shouldn't this alone warrant impeachment?
No. What the responsibility, I say on the next line, on the reaction, he should have been faster to denounce who came in. I thought he didn't move fast enough until the next day.
That, McCarthy says, is worthy of an official congressional censure or rebuke, but he believes it does not constitute a high crime or misdemeanor. Now, he's calling on members of his party to openly welcome the next administration.
Let's be clear. Joe Biden will be sworn in as President of the United States in 1 week because he won the election.
But that appeared to be a far cry from just a week ago when McCarthy led more than 120 GOP House members who voted against certifying the presidential results in Arizona and Pennsylvania, 2 states where Joe Biden won.
What changed?
No. Let's be clear. The question was, and this is what the viewers have to understand, questioning Arizona and Pennsylvania does nothing to change the outcome of the election. The electoral vote does not change based upon who would become president. Joe Biden would still have enough.
But that, now in the past, McCarthy says it's time to move forward and turn down the temperature.
Every American should look at one another and say, what can I do to help heal what we're going through right now? It's gone on too long. Too much has been said on social media. Too much has been criticized to one another. Too much judgment because someone has a difference of opinion. That's not who we are. We're Americans. Let's go to our better angels, and let's make sure we become a better nation with greater opportunity.
That was 17's Dayton Wallace reporting. And while McCarthy believes the president did not commit an impeachable offense, Kern County's other member of Congress, David Valadao, surprised people on the House floor by voting to impeach the president. This is the Hanford Republicans' first official act since returning to Congress after a 2-year absence. He is one of 10 Republicans to break ranks. In a statement explaining his vote, Valadao said Trump's, quote, inciting rhetoric was un-American, abhorrent, and absolutely an impeachable offense.
On January 6th and leading up to January 6th was the President of the United States leading people to believe that Congress had the ability to overturn the electoral process. And that is incorrect. A simple reading of the Constitution will tell you that's not correct. And the problem that I have with what happened on January 6th is people were led to believe that by showing up and putting enough pressure on members of Congress that they had the ability to overturn the electoral process. And that is absolutely false.
Valadao also said House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has, quote, thrown precedent and process out the window by turning what should be a thorough investigation into a rushed political stunt. Valadao said he'd hope for more time to hold hearings to ensure due process, but based on the facts before him, he said he had to, quote, go with his gut and vote his conscience.
509 17 Crime Watch now. 2 people are dead and 2 others wounded after a string of shootings that broke out yesterday across Bakersfield. The latest happened in the 1700 block of Panama Lane just before 10 last night. Police say they responded to a report of a person under a car in an alley. When officers arrived, though, they found one victim with multiple gunshot wounds. Authorities say he was pronounced dead at the scene. Details are still limited. Police have not revealed information about the shooter or the identity of the victim. Just hours earlier, 2 people were shot near the Valley Plaza. Officers were called to the area for a report of a shooting around 7:15 p.m. When they arrived, they didn't find anything until a call came in minutes later for a car found on a median at Oak Street and Truxton Avenue. The car had blood and bullet holes in it. Then, just before 7:30, 2 victims arrived at Mercy downtown with gunshot wounds, and first responders found bullet casings at the Valley Plaza. Authorities say one victim sustained major wounds while the other's wounds were moderate. Both are expected to survive. Police have not released any information about a shooter in this case either. Meantime, an investigation's ongoing after a man running from police died from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Bakersfield police say it happened just after 5 last night in the area of Q and 28th Streets. Bakersfield police say officers pulled over a vehicle for a traffic violation. That's when the car's only passenger got out of the car and ran. One officer chased after the suspect while the other stayed with the driver.
Within seconds of beginning the foot pursuit of the subject, the officer heard a gunshot. The officer responded to the location where he heard the gunshot and discovered the subject that had fled from the vehicle, suffering from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound.
The man was pronounced dead at the scene. Police say the man had climbed several fences and the pursuing officer was not near him when the gun fired. Police responders say that there were multiple witnesses nearby and the officer was wearing a body camera during the chase. Authorities say an investigation is underway to find out whether the apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound was intentional or accidental. The driver of the vehicle is in police custody. The man's identity will be released by the Kern County Coroner's Office at a later date. If you know any information about any of these incidents, you're urged to call Bakersfield Police at 327-7111. Today marks 24 days since 2 young California City boys were reported missing. Police are not giving up the search. 3-year-old Orson and 4-year-old Oren West were reported missing on December 21st. California City Police Chief John Walker said his department, along with 4 other agencies, including Kern County Search and Rescue, went out on another search yesterday. Nothing was found. Chief Walker says around 50 people were involved in that search. Multiple awards have been offered for information on the boys, totaling $80,000. If you have information, you can call the California City Police Department at 760-373-8606 or the Secret Witness Hotline at 322-4040. And we're back here at 5:21 and making news around the nation. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi announced heavy fines for members refusing to follow new House chamber screening protocols. Pelosi yesterday announced that when returning to session on January 21st, the House will vote on a rule change mandating fines for members who refuse to follow new screening protocols for the House chamber. She said many House Republicans have disrespected them by verbally abusing them and refusing to adhere to basic precautions, keeping members of the congressional community, including the Capitol Police, safe. The fine for the first offense will be $5,000, $10,000 for the second offense. The fines will be deducted directly from members' salaries.
Former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder is expected to be formally charged in the Flint water crisis later today. The Flint water prosecution team will announce its findings in the state's criminal investigation into the Flint water crisis. Former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder, who ran the state at the time of the devastating 2014 Flint water scandal, is expected to be charged in the crisis that led to the disease outbreak that killed 12 people. He faces 2 charges of willful neglect of duty and faces up to a year in jail and a $1,000 fine. Others in his administration may also be charged. Snyder and others are scheduled to appear in court, and a news conference by Attorney General Dana Nessel and prosecutors is expected to follow.
KGET Business Watch is brought to you by Grapevine MSP Technology Services, the Valley's leading IT service provider.
Welcome back in your 17 Business Watch. Airbnb properties in Washington, D.C. metro area won't be available during next week's presidential inauguration. The rental company announced yesterday it was canceling and blocking future reservations in the nation's capital next week. Guests who had reserved a place will get a full refund, and Airbnb hosts will be reimbursed for canceled reservations. The move comes as officials ask people not to travel to the area for the inauguration due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and last week's deadly insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. The company previously said it would ban individuals who were involved with the riots or associated with known hate groups. Airbnb says it has identified numerous individuals who were either associated with hate groups or otherwise involved with the riots and have banned them from Airbnb's platform. What are your plans after the pandemic? A new survey from Lending Tree finds more than 8 in 10 Americans who get vaccinated against COVID-19 say they're planning a celebratory splurge sometime in 2021. Most plan on something like a fancy dinner or vacation. However, not everyone's quite ready to spend. 15% of people say that in the wake of the pandemic, they'll never feel financially secure again. More than half said they'll keep saving as much as possible in case the pandemic returns. Barbie's debuting a new doll honoring author, activist, and teacher Dr. Maya Angelou. It is Inspiring Women line, holding a miniature replica of her prolific autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. The Maya Angelou doll wears a head wrap and a floor-length dress with floral print. The doll is part of Barbie's commitment to the Black community to spotlight more Black role models. The Dr. Maya Angelou doll is on sale today at Target, Amazon, and Barbie.Mattel.com. And Barbie says in 2021 and going forward, more than 50% of global role models featured will be Black, Indigenous, and women of color.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.